Afternoon, everybody. It's February 2nd, 2026. I'm going to call the government's meeting to order. And Michael, could you conduct a roll call?
Director Raffinen,
Here.
Director Mulherin,
Here.
Director Alaniz, Director Hansen. Director Hansen not? Okay. Director Chris,
Here.
Caltrans Tasha Ostran,
Here.
Chair Hashak.
Here. Okay, so Assembly Bill 2449.
We have not received any AB 2449 requests.
Okay. All right, so the first item of business is the election of officers for the chair and the vice chair. Okay, do you have any nominations for chair?
I nominate Hashak. Second.
Okay. Any other nominations for a chair? Should I be running this, or Feely, did you run this?
Yeah, we can do the roll call vote for that, and then we can move on to the vice. So we do them separately. We do the chair first. So we've got the nomination. So we could now, if there, make sure there are no other nominations, and then do a roll call for that, and then repeat that for the vice chair.
Okay.
Are you ready for the roll call for chair?
Do we have to take public comment?
I do not believe there is any public comment required on this item.
Okay.
Okay. Director Raffinen,
Yes.
Director Mulherin,
Yes.
Director Alaniz,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Chris,
Yes.
Caltrans Tasha Ostran,
Yes.
and then Chair Hashak.
Yes. All right, so,
All right, and so now we can repeat that same
Thank you for that
process for
vote.
vice chair.
okay, and so any nominations for vice chair? I'll nominate Heather Chris.
Second.
Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the roll call vote.
Director Raffinen,
Yes.
Director Mulherin,
Yes.
Director Alaniz,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Chris,
Yes.
Caltrans Tasha Ostran,
Yes.
Chair Hashak.
Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you for taking on that responsibility. So we'll move on to item 4, which is a public hearing. The Regional Housing Needs Allocation Draft Methodology. We'll look to staff.
Yes, so James is going to take this item. He's been working on the regional housing needs allocation. However, he is still working on getting his voice back, so we might have to switch off at some point.
Good afternoon. And so, go over the staff report real quick. The Regional Housing Needs Assessment is a process that we go through for HCD. And what it does is HCD gives us a number of housing units, and then we work with the local jurisdictions to distribute them across the 5 jurisdictions in the county. And so this process started last year. The allocation that we received was 6,456 units for the Mendocino County region. We appealed that, hoping to reduce that, and were unsuccessful. So we're proceeding with the draft methodology per statute to develop one. We came, I think it was in October, we had a public hearing with our first iteration of the draft methodology, which is what we had used in the previous cycle. Had the public hearing, submitted that to HCD for review. They said, no, thank you, and explained why. And so we went back to the drawing board and We came up with a new one. I believe it's in it's in the packet. It's a little more precise, a little more in-depth, more data-based. And so since that has changed so much from the first one, we felt it would be appropriate to have another public hearing on it because it's quite different. That being said, we did already submit it to HCD, and they said it didn't meet all of the statutes that we had to hit. And so I'm working with the local jurisdictions at this point to try to refine some language to make it accessible, or not accessible, but to appease HCD. And so we did properly notice this public hearing. It wasn't a requirement that it be noticed, but we felt in the interest of the public, it would be best to do that. So, are there any questions on the staff report or the methodology? And go ahead.
I want to add one thing to that. So I just want to be clear that the methodology that both methodologies that we have developed and submitted to HCD, we do believe met the requirements in statute. It's just a matter of HCD interpreting those statutes in a different way. They are essentially requiring us to have our allocation, not just the methodology, but our allocation fully complete. So this last methodology that we submitted included statements that there would be manual adjustments made for specific things based on local staff knowledge from county development departments, and that was not acceptable to HCD, even though it is, we believe, consistent with statute. However, we have not been successful in debating that issue with HCD.
Well, we appreciate your advocacy on behalf of all of our jurisdictions. Okay, so seeing no comment from the board, we should take some public comment.
Yes.
Okay, any public comment on this? Seeing none in the chambers, any online?
None online.
Okay. So, is there any action you need, or this is just going through the process and come back later?
Yes, just a public hearing today. No action is required, and this will come back for board action, hopefully in March.
Okay. Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing. 1:38. And we will convene as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency. And we will recess as the Regional Transportation, the Policy Advisory Committee. Or we'll reconvene as a Policy Advisory Committee. We'll recess as the RTP. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So, consent calendar. 2 items there.
Yes, included on the consent calendar are approval of the December 1st minutes and authorization to release the fiscal year 26-27 draft transportation planning overall work program for review, comment, and circulation.
Okay, any comments on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. Any in the chambers? Seeing none. Any online?
No comments online.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Raffinen,
Yes.
Director Moran,
Yes.
Director Alanese,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Chris,
Yes.
Caltrans Tasha Alstron,
Yes.
Chair Hashak.
Yes. Okay, that passed, so we'll move on to public expression. Any public expression in the chambers? Please come up to the microphone.
I wanted to come today to thank Caltrans for their ongoing procedures on the North State Street on-ramp, off-ramp to making it more safer. They've added some signs there. I think people are getting a little bit more of a warning that there is no merge. The sign actually says no merge, even though you're merging, but I think it gives the clue that you're going to be going into, traffic, and that we've had a lot of safety issues there. The other thing, I spoke with the sheriff a little bit last month. We also have had some safety issues crossing the river with the new bridge on Highway 20 where you're heading north. And I'm not sure if Caltrans might want to look at the specific speed limit for that corner. I think we had 4 accidents in one day when it rained from people heading north off of the Highway 20 west onto Highway 101. As they're heading north towards the casino there, you'll notice that the fence has always been wrecked for a long time, and there's a bunch of cones. And after speaking with the sheriff, I think it was Tuesday of before our MAC meeting, that we had 4 accidents there one morning on the rain. And after they got one cleared, then another one. Got one cleared, and then another one. So my comment here is just to Caltrans is appreciate the safety measures that are going on. Maybe look at that north entrance to 101 heading towards Willits. And I also would just like to double down and say with the North State Street on-ramp, off-ramp in Ukiah, at the edge of Ukiah. Now that we have some new buildings out there, we're going to have a lot more traffic, I think, on that entrance and exit. And I really believe that if we turn the off-ramp into the on-ramp, that will give us an extra 100 yards of travel before we reach the bridge, which will allow us to not have to enlarge the bridge. And with the savings of that money, we should be able to build a new off-ramp. So that may sound confusing, but if you can visually see, the off-ramp is the longest off-ramp up 101 that I've ever, for a long ways, all the way down to Airport Boulevard that I know of. And then we have the shortest on-ramp right next to it. I think we can fix that pretty easily without enlarging the bridge. That's my public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael, is there a timer? Or are your timing? Okay, thank you. Okay, any other public comment?
Good afternoon. My name is John Bauer. I'm a majority property owner in the Wallala Streetscape plan. And I'm here today to look toward some options that might be available to all of us as we move ahead and Caltrans starts to think about building the new streetscape in Wallala, because they're taking 62 parking places off the street. They have not decided to have any mitigation for those, not install more parking places. Most of those parking places are actually on our property, which we own completely across the street through over half of the streetscape. And so in that light, it's going to be really difficult for us. I don't know if you've all heard that the surf market is very short of parking. And when they take that street parking off, if they can, that will probably reduce their customer parking by at least half, which probably does them in as a viable business if we can't find more parking. So in that light, I want to make sure that you all know that this is a mess. It's coming to us from the town plan, which has never been updated in over 22 years and has never been tested. And so there haven't been any applications other than the helipad for RCMS, which the Board of Supervisors, your predecessors, has said they were going to fix 7 years ago, and they never did. And that was the general, GPD, Wallala Plan Development. It put us in a position that everything that was going to be built on any of these parcels, so wants to be built on the parcels, required the entire parcel to be planned. So there we are. That's difficult. Many people in our community have no clue what's coming down the street other than Caltrans and a big bunch of bulldozers, and it is going to really hurt the service facilities for the Sea Ranch, which has about 2,200 parcels, and they did not build a service center for Walla. So if you don't mind me going on for another minute, I really feel that something's completely astray. We need to back up. We need to get the businesses involved. We need to get Caltrans back on the platter here and decide how they're going to really help us, how they're going to give us back the parking they just stole from us. Comes off of our property, our personal property. They have a prescriptive right of use. Staff has been over to MCOG and said right off the bat that Caltrans was going to buy, is going to buy all those prescriptive easements. They've never come to me. They've never even talked to me about the issues that I said I can help you with in downtown. So it's not fun, but I better cut it off there. Thank you for listening to me, and have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is public expression, so it's for items not on the agenda. So,
No, so if you're referring to the regional transportation plan, that is later on the agenda. If it's about that, that'll come later. If it's about something that is not on the agenda, this is the time for that.
all right, seeing no further public expression in the chambers, any online?
We had one, but they've lowered their hand.
Okay,
Yeah, we did. Peter McNamee had his hand up, but he has lowered it.
okay, then we'll move on to the regular calendar, which item number 10 is the adoption of the 2026 Mendocino County Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP, and Active Transportation Plan, the ATP. This is continued from December 1st, 2025, and it will be continued to March 2nd, 2026.
Yes, adoption will be continued, and James, this is another James item that we will probably, will be a team effort, but he can explain to you why it will be continued again.
So in December, we had, the board adopted the negative declaration, completing the CEQA process for the document. We had hoped that we could adopt the RTP at that time. However, one of the RHNA statutes states that the methodology must be approved. The draft methodology has to be approved by HCD and the MCOG board prior to adoption of the RTP. Since we are still working through that process, we are waiting to adopt this. But we have, since December, we have actually made some changes to it. We've been incorporating some comments from Caltrans and anticipate adding a few more from the public. I can summarize what I've changed so far. None of it has been of any huge substance. So Caltrans had asked that the Garcia River flooding project be moved from the long-term to the short-term project list. And then I added a little language. So I'll just go element by element, I suppose. The state highway element is where that was found. I also added a little bit of language on MCOG's vehicle miles traveled mitigation project that we're working on, or going to be working on. And then apparently there were a couple projects in their list that were actually in Humboldt County. In the county road section, I added a little bit of language on MCOG's sea level rise project. In the active transportation element, I just updated a little bit of project details. In public transit, I enhanced the language on the transit center based on the feasibility study that was conducted by MTA. It was a little more general in the previous iteration, and now it describes the two sites that rose to the top from that feasibility study. Added a little bit of language on the North State Express. For those who aren't familiar with that, it is public transit service connecting Ukiah to Eureka. And then that's the first step. Once it's fully implemented, it'll connect the I-5 corridor to the 101 corridor through Highway 20, as well as 299 up to the north. And then added a little bit of language on the Caltrans district plan. In the rail section, I clarified the current name of the railroad because California Western and Sierra Railroad had been used interchangeably, and Sierra Railroad bought California Western, and so fix that. And then in the financial element, I added 4 funding sources that I was unaware of, 2 regarding tribal transportation, 1 regarding ports, and then the better utilizing investments to leverage development, which is currently, that's the BUILD program, used to be the Tiger, and also the RAISE. It funds very large projects. So those are the changes that I've made so far. Questions?
Okay, so with the item number 4 that we had earlier, the public hearing on the RHNA draft methodology, that will be incorporated into this, or they have to be simultaneous?
It won't be incorporated, but it has to be a, yes. They'll be at the same meeting.
Okay. Okay, and that's,
Hopefully March, but HCD has a 60-day window once they accept the methodology for review.
okay. And
So I have a bit to add before we to add to the staff report. So I do want to mention that we have received, because we have received some public comment, which will, and I expect we'll have more when we take comments regarding the rail, the inclusion of the skunk train operations in the regional transportation plan. I did want to just go ahead and briefly address that. Of course, the public comment this doesn't affect people's ability to provide public comment. But I wanted to just clarify for members of the public, but also for newer board members, there are certain elements of the RTP that are more meaningful than others because MCOG has a lot of involvement in them. The ways that we are involved in those elements, which include the local streets and roads, active transportation, the state highways, and transit, are that we have funding that we can award to those projects. There are projects that are implemented by our member agencies that fall into those categories. And so for a lot of those things, it is important that they are included in the RTP because of that, because we have a lot more involvement and actual funding authority over those things. There are 3 that are really more just for informational purposes. Those are the aviation element, the maritime element, and the rail element. What is included in the rail element of the RTP is really informational. It has changed a lot since the last RTP, and that had changed a lot since the previous RTP, as it's been something that's been changing a lot over the last decade in Mendocino County. And so we believe that what is in there now is a good informational element. It does recognize the excursion service, and I will in fact read it is a 3-page section of the RTP on rail. But when describing the system definition for the skunk train, it says, the skunk train is a passenger excursion service owned and operated by Mendocino Railway, a privately held company. So that's the first sentence of the system definition regarding the skunk train. The action plan, there really is no action plan for rail, whereas under those other elements that I mentioned, there's an action plan, there are specific projects listed. The appendices of the RTP include lists of projects with project identification numbers that tie to those action elements in those other sections. In the rail section, it says, while there are no rail projects to identify in MCOG's action plan and no associated funding, there may be future opportunities to support the CWR's excursion service, such as letters of support, as well as public bus to rail connections from Mendocino County to locations out of the county. So those are the, I think, most significant parts of the RTP that will relate to the public testimony that I expect we will hear today. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody had that information first.
Okay, thank you for that. Kind of lays out the picture of what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any comments from the board? Okay, we'll go to public comment then. From the chambers, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you very much. This is probably my only opportunity to speak with you folks about the kinds of things that go on in Wallala and how we hope we're included. And it appears that we're not really included in much of the Caltrans work down the South Coast. And I've done probably 5 or 6 or maybe even more, if James can find them, comments on your at least 2-year-old survey report, questionnaire, which was really great. I was able to put almost everything down, but it didn't come out in the public. It's not being issued out as, hey, look at this to see if it's anything good that we want in the community. And so all these intersections and these traffic issues that go on Old Stage, Pacific Woods, Wallala, and the intersections in there are not really included in your plan. Caltrans has not looked at it as anything that they want to work on. And I don't know if you folks have either, but we need some help. We put a lot of TOT tax into the county's coffers, and I think that we need to be kind of appreciated a little. Some of that is it's going to go on with the streetscape, which I previously talked about, but it's going to be a tough road for us. We have not had a sufficient representation, and when we do have some sort of representation, it is seemingly, and I discussed this before, seemingly mostly those people from outside the community. All the coastal development policies are not being followed. We're losing, 62 places on the street for parking, and that could be sufficient to kill at least 2 businesses in town. And there are 2 other businesses that are going to die in town. And if that's not taken care of and we don't look for some additional parking in our town, we're in trouble, serious trouble. So if those items that I have documented to you on your survey, if those can become more public and open, I think they may bring more people into discussions, which would be very good for us in those particular items. So thank you, and good luck with all this. It's a lot of work. You are busy people, and it's tough. And I know what it's like being an individual in the middle of a big town. It's hard. So thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Comment about the rails, and even though it is going to be passenger related and probably not get any money from the county, and I'm not either for or against the rails, but what I would like to see, if we do have, if that does come to fruition, that is also allows us to use that in case of an emergency, tsunami or whatever. Even if it's a passenger rail, if we can move a bunch of people from the coast away really fast, then that train might be critical to have. So like I said, I'm not for it either or, but if it does go through, we should also think about using it as part of our evacuation plan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jared Sonula. I'm here to address some deficiencies that might be in our public transportation here in Mendocino County. I'm a third generation resident of Mendocino County. I work at the Lucky Deuce DUI program here for the past 4 years. And 10 years ago, I was responsible for causing a fatal collision that killed a man and badly injured his wife. And since then, I've gotten, that was my last drink. I've been in recovery since that night, and I work. I work in the field to try to bring awareness that drunk driving kills, and I'm trying to somehow balance out those scales by bringing that message to people. The reason I'm here is because I think there is no viable late night public transportation from bars and restaurants in Ukiah to Willits all the way. And my idea was that, first of all, depending on intoxicated people to make, I wrote it down here, sound judgment and make responsible decision is hopeful at best. And if we are really trying to prevent these crashes from happening instead of just collecting revenue on misdemeanor DUIs, I think that misdemeanor DUI money could be better reinvested into a late night bus that might go from the center of Ukiah all the way to Willits, go around the circle or the loop in Redwood Valley, go up to Willits, come back. Maybe that could happen at midnight. Then it could come back. It could go all the way to Hopland. Then it could come back again at 2 a.m. and possibly get people home safely. If we save one life, it's worth, it's worth it. I know it's probably not going to be a moneymaker, and it's going to have to be subsidized with county money. You could also get the establishments that are profiting off of alcohol sales to chip in possibly, and make sure their patrons get to and from their establishments safe. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and maybe that's a possibility in the future that we could work towards, just having late night viable reliable bus routes that could get people home safely, and also that would help businesses downtown with patrons and help them out with their business. So, and it hopefully saves lives. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So.
Well, thank you, Jared. And certainly that seems like an unmet need, which is our next issue.
Yes, and
Which is-
I wonder if, I think I may have steered you wrong when I said which item to speak under, so that's okay.
Yeah. But it will be duly noted in the next
Yes.
agenda item too.
Yes.
Right. Seeing no further comments in the chambers, we'll go to Peter McNamee.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I too appreciate the work that MCOG does. Recently, I sent MCOG a copy of a letter to the editor published in the Mendocino Vision summarizing my objections to Mendocino Railway's inclusion in the transportation plan. Rather than repeat what I've already said, I want to share some of the reactions from taxpayers in the community to that letter. JK wrote, Mendocino Railway has been ripping off people's property by claiming eminent domain as public transportation when they are really an excursion ride for tourists and pleasure seekers. Taxpayers would be better served seeing their money used for health care and upkeep of our streets. Betty wrote, taxpayer dollars for a tourist trap gimmick? Absolute truth. And that's why we cannot afford to live here. I've been here decades and it's getting more expensive by the day. Stephen wrote, public money should not be used for the privately run skunk train if the trail corridor itself is not available to the public. Allowing for a public multi-use path, hikers, horses, bicyclists, and emergency vehicles along the route would be a much better use of public resources. Strong Mendo Woman wrote, what commercial railroad makes you pedal your ass and pay for it? That should settle the question of its definition. We're compliant. Why aren't they accountable? Mary wrote, I agree with everyone as to community and taxpayer ripoffs the railway has perpetuated. Scam of claimed, designated, coupled with intrusion in county property owners' rights becoming criminal. Oversight is necessary by the Board of Supervisors, the state, and any other government bodies. Tourist ride of a few miles is not a railway. Shameful, this company has managed to scam Fort Bragg and Mendocino County. Julie wrote, the skunk train is not a common carrier. It's a privately owned tourist attraction. Let's not get in the weeds here, but use common sense. S. Clark wrote, I couldn't agree more about the skunk train. It's a tourist attraction, not a real railroad that we depend upon to move people and freight. It should not get the federal monies described. Moreover, their aggressive tactics in bullying anyone who opposes their power moves, the city of Fort Bragg and private property owners, should be very concerning to everyone who cares about fair play. If you enjoy going on the skunk train, that's a different issue. This is about the fact that they are taking advantage of status programs that don't properly apply to them. Christopher wrote, the whole operation is basically a permanent carnival ride without any use to the public beyond a trip to the unpermitted party barn they built a mile out of town. They'll never fix the tunnel. They'll never carry anything beyond rental equipment for weddings and party goers to the bar in the woods. And they treat people terribly if they question any aspect of the scam. People like to party.
Mr. McNamee?
Yes.
Yeah, could you please wrap it up?
Well, I'll wrap it up by just saying, these are the opinions of taxpayers regarding the railway and its operation in Mendocino County. I hope that as you plan for transportation, not amusement rides, that you'll hear their message and act appropriately in your planning process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments online?
No further comments online.
Okay.
I do have public comments that we received prior to the meeting that I'd like to summarize for the board.
Okay.
So we have several, so I will be summarizing rather than reading them all in full. From Kirk Vodopals, he says, please remove the skunk train from your transport rail system. Christine Franks says that it was determined by the Public Utilities Commission that is not a public transport and is a tourist attraction. She states that it is not a public transport that should receive public funds. Jenny Sandberg says that the service should not be included in the transportation plan because they provide entertainment, not public transportation. Sakina Bush expresses concerns with inclusion of Mendocino Railway in the transportation plan because they are not providing public transportation, but rather entertainment, and it does not serve the needs of citizens. Jonathan Peakall states that it is absurd that the skunk train is considered anything but an excursion train, using eminent domain to take property and as an excuse to develop the headlands is a travesty. Tom McFadden says, urges MCOG to stop including Mendocino Railway and the skunk train in the RTP. Martin Sexton states that the skunk train is not a legitimate railroad and should not enjoy the luxury benefits that are currently granted to them. It is business entertainment and for tourists, and locals is likely beneficial for tourism, and that it should not receive public funds to support private business. Evan Mills says that Mendocino Railway is inappropriately capturing political and economic benefits as an ostensible provider of public transportation, stating that it is a tourist attraction and urging MCOG to exclude it from the transportation plan, as doing so would divert taxpayer money, and stating that it is even if it could be justified as transportation, it is a highly cost inefficient way to provide transportation. Carl Young asks MCOG to refrain from supporting activities of Mendocino Railways and their attempts to get federal funds and land via eminent domain, and their efforts to stop the development of the Great Redwood Trail by posing as a legitimate railroad. Arif Thunen states that the skunk train is not public transportation and should not receive taxpayer dollars, which could go for other purposes like fixing roads and means of public transport. Laurel Krause states that it should not be considered a public utility, that it provides amusement rides for tourists and does not serve the Fort Bragg community, that Mendocino Railways has misled the courts. It is a well-funded corporation that has received over $21 million in tax dollars and encourages MCOG to not condone the behaviors. Melissa Parks states that skunk train should not be included in the transportation plan because it is a tourist attraction, not a public service that can provide transport anywhere from Fort Bragg or Willits. Has concerns about abuse of federal funding, and that there is a cost to other residents and businesses that are adjacent to the numerous railroad crossings in time and money, and hopes that Fort Bragg can regain some control over how the city develops and influence how federal funds are spent. Robert Ballard asks to remove the skunk train from the county's transportation plan, stating that it is a tourist attraction and should not receive taxpayer dollars. Liz Helenchild states that she's in agreement with Peter McNamee's article or letter to the editor, and stating that the skunk train is a tourist amusement, and noting the California Attorney General's appeal in the courts to overturn the Surface Transportation Board's ruling that the skunk train is a federally authorized railroad, and asking that it be removed from the transportation plan. Nick Luco states that he has concerns about the mill site and train issues. The lack of transparency is of concern regarding the purchase of the mill site and cleanup of toxins. Most local people, he states, are against the train. Let's see. Many days when the train doesn't run or is running with very few riders, the interruption of traffic is a problem, and now they are running it until well past 10 p.m. on the weekends. He rides a bicycle and walks every day, and it is obvious that the benefit to the area is way overstated. Leslie Luco asks that it not be included, that the Mendocino Railway not be included in the transportation plan, stating that they do not provide transportation, not provide public transportation, but are an excursion train for purposes of amusement. Sam Gitchell states that there is no way that they are considered a real railroad because they do not take cargo anywhere, but provide amusement rides. Carolyn James states that Skunk Company is not a good steward for the local community and should not be included in the RTP. Annie Lee states that the skunk train is not transportation, but rather a tourist activity, and has concerns about misappropriation of public funds and private property. And that is all of the public comments that we received prior to the meeting.
Thank you for reading that. Are those going to be available for the public to see? Or?
Yes, we could add those to the, most of these were received this morning, so we can add these to the meeting information that's available on the website.
Okay, very good. Any comments? Director Mulhern.
Thank you. I believe the Board of Supervisors for the county also received about 11 emails over the weekend, and maybe some of those were not duplicated with the ones that you just read. So I can forward them to whoever's the appropriate person. Can you explain for me one more time why the skunk is being included in the RTP? I read so it's just informational purposes that it exists. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, so we adopt this plan we now update it every 4 years, used to be every 5 years, and so what's included regarding the skunk train and rail in general has changed a lot over the last 2 updates of the plan. So we have heard concerns in this update about its recognition at all in the RTP. Obviously, you just heard the basic sentiment. We've also received comments from the skunk train staff on the opposite side of things. It is really just informational. What is included in there should not affect skunk train's ability to receive money or operate in any way. This is a document, though, that the MCOG board approves, and so, of course, we can make any changes that the board would like to see in the plan, and it is not final yet, but this is what's in our current plan. We developed it as it is, feeling that it was a compromise between, recognizing the history that rail has had in the county, but also reflecting the current reality of rail in the county. But like I said, happy to make any changes that the board would like to see.
Well,
Director Mulhern.
if my colleagues would indulge me here, because I am representing the county, and this is my first time physically serving in the MCOG board. When the decision was made, as this process has moved forward, could you just share for me your thoughts about why you wanted to keep the skunk in the plan?
I'd be happy to. So again, being new to the board, I had to do a lot of homework and find out a lot about this, and it is pretty well known that the skunk train, as it exists right now, is a big part of the financing that City of Willis relies upon. We invested heavily to make sure that it continued to be so. But with regards to its presence inside the Regional Transportation Plan and Active Transportation Plan, there was a court case a few years ago that described it as not being a public utility, but just earlier this month, the appellate court overturned that and said that in fact they were a public utility and that they have the right to use eminent domain and such. I am not a legal expert. I don't know whether it is or isn't, or whether the decisions were correct or not correct, but it would seem to me that there is some sort of a disagreement at the state level on the judicial side and the legal side, whether it is or isn't a public utility, and I feel until that gets completely settled, we should continue to put it into our document. I heard a lot of those sentiments that were shared, and while I respect each person's opinion, a large piece of those sentiments did include the fact they wanted to make sure that we were not using funds from the federal government or from the state government to do that. But in this report, we actually go out of our way to specify, as I'm reading here, MCOG does not provide direct financial support or participation in management and programming of improvement for railroad operations. So that was a significant, almost every one of them had mentioned that they do not want money to go to that. We're saying we don't want money into that. And until the legal fight or wrangling gets settled, I would like to see it remain in there, if nothing else, to specify that we're not spending any money inappropriately or the way people don't want it to be spent. That's my viewpoint on that.
Yeah, I think the other part is that, we're recognizing that the skunk train is an excursion train. It's not a means of transit for people, but it does exist as an excursion train, and there's economic benefit to that for the community, and so we're not advocating, with all the court cases that are going on, we're not advocating one way or another. We're just waiting for those to play themselves out. And in the meantime, we're just saying, yeah, it's an excursion train that exists.
I'll also add one more thing. We will be, well, I think James has already added something to the plan. I'm not sure if it is in the current version that is on the website now, but just acknowledging that there are current legal proceedings that could change the status as a federally recognized railroad and public utilities commission, and public utility.
And we do have another public comment from Dave Schbach.
Thank you, Chair Hashak. I apologize. I pushed the wrong button earlier, but anyway, good afternoon, Chair, members of the council, and MCOG staff. My name is Dave Schbach. I live on the Wallala Ridge. The comprehensive scope, multifaceted complexity, and 165-page length of the 2026 RTP ATP bear out the fundamental enabling importance of this document. Considering the importance of the plans, combined with the level of effort, taxpayer cost, and long update cycle, getting it right is imperative. There are several components of getting it right, including input from stakeholders. I appreciate that MCOG has invited a lot of input. Another component of getting it right is actually considering the input that people gave time and effort to provide. As a person who's participated in countless outreach and input activities, I do not indulge in the fantasy that every comment must influence MCOG measurably. Yet, when directors get an agenda report that says, quote, staff incorporated comments received from Caltrans and additional public feedback as appropriate, close quote, I am troubled by the numerous spelling, project status, internal inconsistency, redundancy, and factual errors in the document in front of you. A specific example. I offered a correction for an identification error in the draft RTP ATP in my detailed written comments submitted via emails to staff on November 5th and January 26th. The only detectable response is that the final draft deletes mention of the existing pedestrian and bicyclist safety hazard on Old Stage Road from the report of public input in the county maintained roads and city streets element. There isn't enough time allowed for this verbal public comment to enumerate apparently insufficient standard of care, so I will share a few particular low points. The persistent and frequent problem of State Route 1 closure when flooded at the Garcia River or Gasker Slough is in the list of long-range improvements on page 1 of the executive summary and described as a long-range improvement on page 39 of the State Highway System element. Yet, the problem is in the list of short-range improvements on page 45 of that element. This ambivalence is amplified by language in the county maintained roads and city streets element that explicitly discourages action to determine the feasibility of a comparatively lower cost solution on a local roadway. The plan fails to accurately summarize existing conditions, need, and purpose, previous studies of the problem and capital project alternatives, or reasonable, low-cost incremental steps to help people cope with the lifeline problem until it is solved. As a future-oriented document, the plan fails to report the latest MCOG sales tax poll and current rationale for a vote in 2026. The final RTP ATP document does not include Appendix J, thus depriving the public an opportunity to inspect MCOG's list of projects and priorities. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I hope that the time and effort invested today and since last fall in careful, detailed reviews and thorough, reasonable, solution-oriented comments are not in vain.
Hey, thank you for those comments. And staff, you'd talked earlier about the Garcia River and the change from the long term to the short term. Is that consistent with what Mr. Schbach was?
So we have, we did receive additional comments from Mr. Schbach last week before. And unfortunately, the flu that seems to be going around has hit MCOG staff pretty hard. But James and I have started going through those last week. And we do, as mentioned, we do expect to make additional minor changes to the plan prior to MCOG board adoption. The inconsistencies, for instance, that he mentioned between the description of the Walla flooding issue or the Gasker Slough flooding issue in the executive summary and in the action plan is something that we've already caught and corrected that will be included in the final version, as well as some other minor changes. And that applies to comments received from Dave as well as others that we may have recently received.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments online?
No further comments online.
All right. So,
Before we end this item, I do want to just add one more thing. The Appendix J is available on our website. It was not included in the document that was with the board packet because it hasn't changed, but it is, well, it hasn't changed. The only change would be to move the one project from long to short range, but other than that, in its previous format, it is on the website.
okay, so this item will come back for adoption on March 2nd.
Yes. If it will come back at March 2nd, and hopefully we will be able to move forward with adoption pending HCD approval of the RHNA methodology.
Any further comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, which is a public hearing on the unmet transit needs for fiscal year 2026-27, including Social Services Transportation Advisory Council recommendations of November 13th, 2025. Look to
Okay.
Ms. Barrett.
So, oops, sorry about that. So the unmet transit needs process is something that MCOG conducts each year as a process for receiving public input. It is something that is required by the Transit Development Act if a regional transportation planning agency is going to award local transportation funds for streets and roads purposes. Local transportation funds are the quarter-cent sales tax that is collected throughout the county for that purpose, or for purposes primarily of a number of things, including RTP administration, 2% bike and ped, and transit. It can be used for local road projects as well. MCOG has not historically used it for that purpose, but this is a requirement if it is used for that purpose. So even though we do not use it for that purpose, we still conduct the unmet needs hearing as a way to provide opportunities for public testimony and identify needs that might be included in current public transit and in our budgeting process. So this starts every year with a meeting of our Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, at which which is another requirement of the Transit Development Act and is made up of representatives that are spelled out in that act. It also includes Mendocino Transit Authority, and we gather a list of things that come from that group, and then combine that with any public testimony that's been heard at MTA meetings throughout the year, and that is what gets put together in the list of possible unmet transit needs that come forward to MCOG, and then added to that are items that are identified in the public hearing, which is what we will be holding today. So I guess before I continue with my staff report, I will ask that the board make a finding of proper notice. So there is a 30-day legal notice requirement. The notice of this public hearing was published in the Ukiah Daily Journal on December 18th, in the Willits News on December 13th, Fort Bragg Advocate on December 18th, and the Independent Coast Observer on December 19th. The Ukiah Daily Journal notice meets our requirement for a newspaper of general circulation.
So I will, or do we need to approve that then?
Um,
Acknowledge that?
You can do it by consensus. It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily need a formal motion and second. It can be by consensus.
Seeing no objections, we'll accept that.
All right, thank you.
Proper notice has been established.
Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing.
Yes.
I just want to get on the record on the right time in the meeting here. So I work at Lucky Deuce, which is a DUI program in town, and I just wanted to bring attention that there is a deficiency in late night transportation to get people to and from establishments in Ukiah to Willits, all around into Redwood Valley, and my experience in the past 4 years of working there. And by no means this is me trying to shift culpability for what I did. I'm just trying to bring awareness and prevent anything from happening again like I caused. I don't feel like people are getting the message, and people are still driving intoxicated. And if we just made it very convenient and it was reliable and it was right there outside the bar at the right time and the right place, and took them to a location where they could get home safely, I think we could really make a positive impact on this issue of drinking and driving and intoxicated driving in the county. So I just wanted to say that one more time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Probably the same for the coast too. Okay. Okay, let's going back to staff. Is there a report or anything else you need to add?
I was just going to add a little bit more about the process regarding the definitions and what the action is, what action is needed today. So would you like me to go ahead and do that now?
Yes.
Okay. So in this process, we have adopted definitions that we use to determine whether something is an unmet transit need, and then later in the process, we will determine whether things are considered reasonable to meet. So the definitions that were previously adopted by MCOG for those are: an unmet transit need is whenever a need to transport people is not being satisfied through the existing public or private resources. And then reasonable to meet is, it is reasonable to meet a transit need if all of the following conditions prevail. A, that service will be capable of meeting the Transportation Development Act fair revenue operating cost requirements and established MCOG criteria for new services. B, transit services designed or intended to address an unmet transit need shall not duplicate transit services currently provided either publicly or privately. C, the claimant that is expected to provide the service shall review, evaluate, and indicate that the service is operationally feasible and vehicles shall be currently available in the marketplace. And D, funds are available or there is a reasonable expectations that funds will become available. So those are the definitions that we use in this process. And at this point of the unmet needs process, what we need to do is determine whether or not the list, including testimony that is presented today and the list that was in the packet, includes anything, and you don't have to go through item by item, but just something in there meets that definition of an unmet transit need. So that is the recommendation that staff has included in the staff report based on the process so far. And then once the board makes that, makes a finding, if the finding is made that there are unmet needs, then the list is forwarded on to MTA and the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council for further analysis, and then it will return back to the MCOG board at a later date with recommendations about if there are any of those needs that we believe are reasonable to meet.
Ms. Barrett, I wanted to point out to you that in the agenda, it makes a reference to the SSTAC, the Local Transportation Advisory Council.
Mm-hmm.
There is a link to that in our board information that allows us to go to that meeting minutes for November 13th. 2025 to see such things, but that link is broken. At least you
Okay.
can't get to it at this very
So
moment.
in the agenda itself?
No, it's in
or in
the
the-
separate information packet.
Okay.
Information packet for 02/02, 2026.
I will check on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we all have access to that.
So if the finding is yes, that the testimony does include unmet needs, then the list of needs is directed to MTA. And will this list include what Jared brought up? Or is there a way of adding
Yes.
that to the list at
Yes.
this point?
We will add that to the list. We will revise the list that's in the packet to add needs that were identified today at the public hearing, and then that was what will go forward for analysis.
Thank you. Any further comment from the board? Okay, seeing none? Okay, any further public comment?
I'm going to say it. I know you've already heard me say this a bunch of times. We need a public transit mall really bad. I know it's coming, but I'm going to say it anyways. The other thing I'd like to say is I think we should require the contractors to create pullouts for the bus stops. There's some on Bush Street when they did that across from Low Gap. They're really nice. People pull out. You can go by. When they redid Goby Street, they didn't include them. So as soon as the bus stops, the whole road. So I think it's really imperative that we look at the fact that, especially if we're trying to evacuate people, if the bus is going to stop in the middle of the road, and especially with the new streetscape that they're doing, the bus stops here, the bus stops right here, and then there's like this huge giant piece of concrete, so you can't like pull around, so it creates a big traffic backup. I think one of the things that we should try to require, if we can, any place where there's a bus stop, that it actually has a specific turnout for the bus to get out of the way of the traffic.
Okay, thank you. Any comments online?
There looks to be one in chat from Peter McNamee.
I believe that's on the previous agenda item.
2 minutes ago. Yeah, it looks. But for this agenda item, no, there's no more comment.
Okay. Does anyone want us to read that comment? Seems like it refers to the previous item. Do we read it into the record?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. McNamee writes, unfortunately, while MCOG might not have a direct decision-making role in funding rail, as long as the skunk train is in the transportation plan, use that to argue with federal rail officials that the county supports the train receiving federal rail funds. As you have heard, taxpayers object to having an amusement ride. The train is entertainment, not transportation. It should be excluded from the regional plan. There is no way for the plan. Okay. So it was all about the previous item. Okay, so we're still on to item 11, the public hearing. So seeing no further comments.
I'm sorry. I did also receive one written public comment prior to the board meeting on this item. So I will, if you don't mind, I will go ahead and read this one.
Okay.
This is from Eric Barker, and he says, currently there is one trip northbound on weekends from Santa Rosa to Ukiah. That bus departs the Santa Rosa Amtrak stop at 1:25, the 2nd Street Transit Mall at 1:45, and the Sonoma County Airport at Smart Train stops around 2 p.m. on weekends. That's quite early in the day to come back from Santa Rosa, creating a significant challenge meeting other transit times. In April of this year, the Smart Train is scheduled to expand their service between Windsor and Larkspur to include trips up to 11 p.m. on weekends. Let's offer at least one bus trip back to Ukiah from Santa Rosa at night to take advantage of these expanded service hours. Thank you.
Okay, if that's it for the public comment, we will close the public hearing. We'll go back to the board. And is there a finding of yes, that the testimony does include unmet needs? We have a motion on that?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote?
Director Raffinen,
Yes.
Director Moran,
Yes.
Director Alanese,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Chris,
Yes.
Caltrans Tasha Ostran,
Yes.
Chair Hashek.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to the annual committee appointments. So the executive committee, usually it's a committee of 3.
Yes.
And we usually have the chair and the vice chair and one other person.
Correct.
So the executive committee meets,
At least once a year. We always need to meet in towards the end of February to prior to releasing the available funding amount to MTA of our local transportation funds. Occasionally there's a need to meet at another time, but typically it is once a year.
okay, any volunteers to be the third person on that executive committee?
I'd like to volunteer.
will. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no.
Oh.
She said it first.
Yep.
Oh, you said first.
No.
I'm happy to serve one way or the other.
Okay,
If you need me, I'm happy
Thank
to do
you.
that. I have to learn, happy to be.
yeah. I think if we, because we have 2 inland people, if we could get, if Marcia is willing to do it,
I
then
yield.
that would be great to have that kind of balance.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I will. I just don't want to step on anybody's toes here.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. So we have a committee of 3. All right, the Transit Productivity Committee.
All right, so this can be any 2 MCOG board members, but we do try to make sure at least one of those board members is not also an MTA board member, because Transit Productivity Committee is tasked with fiscal oversight and reviewing MTA's claim.
Oh, so I'm the MTA representative for the Board of Supervisors this year.
So you can be on as long as the other appointee is not on MTA.
I'm also on the MTA board. Yes.
So, I mean, I'll be on this committee, but we need. Is there someone else who wants to be on it?
Typically just once a year, and this would be later in the spring, in April or May, and it will be to review MTA's claim.
All right, I'll volunteer.
Great. All right, we're good with that committee. And the California Association of Councils of Governments. So I was the representative last year, and as Chris was the alternate. And I think that the plan was for Miss Chris to be the representative this year, and or anyone could be the alternate. So, is that still?
Very
Okay.
sound, very sound.
Anyone else want to be the alternate? I'm fine doing it. Okay? Okay. We're good with that then? And
Yes.
then the ad hoc committee for the Covelo State Route 162 Corridor Multi-Purpose Trail Project. It's been for the last couple of years Mike Carter and myself, but the project is pretty much completed, and so there's probably not a need for the ad hoc at this point. Is that correct?
Correct. So staff recommends dissolving that ad hoc.
Very good. So, do we need to take public comment on those appointments, or?
I don't believe that public comment is needed on this item.
Okay, so we will recess as a policy advisory committee and reconvene as RTPA.
Sorry, before we move on from that item, though, we do actually need to take formal action on the slate that was discussed.
Oh.
It can be one action, but we need to.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve that slate?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve that slate, which includes dissolving the ad hoc committee.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have that captured? Okay, could we do a roll call vote?
Director Raffernan,
Yes.
Director Mulhern,
Yes.
Director Alanese,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Chris,
Yes.
Caltrans Tasha Ostran,
Yes.
Chair Hashek.
Yes. Okay, very good. So we will recess as a policy advisory committee, reconvene as a RTPA, ratify action of the policy advisory committee. Okay, is there a motion to ratify the actions?
So moved.
Second.
Good. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Raffernan,
Yes.
Director Mulhern,
Yes.
Director Alanese,
Yes.
Director Hansen,
Yes.
Director Chris,
Yes.
Chair Hashek.
Yes. Okay, moving on to reports. So we will go to Caltrans District 1.
Hi. Some funding opportunities available right now. The BUILD program closes on February 25th. Eligible project types include planning or construction of transportation projects, large projects, as James alluded to earlier. If any agency is looking for a letter of support from Caltrans, we suggest that you reach out soon to Scott Elsmore. Also, the guidelines for Prop 4 Urban Greening Program will be released tomorrow. There will be approximately $100 million available for the next couple of years. This program supports nature-based solutions, expanding green spaces to serve as refuge during heat waves, creating green streets for clean stormwater capture, and helping communities become more climate resilient. So more to come on that. The district transit plans, we're now in year 2 and still aiming for October for a draft report. A draft engagement strategy and existing conditions will be released at the end of February or early March. Engagement will begin in April and continue through July. The corridor management plans, we're currently developing the corridor management plan for US 101, which is a high-level long-term vision for the highway route. We will be preparing fact sheets with key dates and opportunities for engagement, so you'll see those soon. The schedule will be the stakeholder consultation happening in March, public outreach in April, and a final draft in June 2026. The climate vulnerability assessments, Caltrans headquarters is developing a draft vulnerability and risk assessment statewide summary report. We're waiting for CalSTA to approve the communication plan to share with our partners. We expect this to happen sometime this spring. And then a Caltrans milestone report package that contains a list of all Caltrans projects is in the agenda package. Just pointing out that state budget shortfalls have required us to move project funding to different fiscal years. So you'll see that reflected in the project schedules in the report. And if you're interested in learning more, there's more information in the 2026 shop available on our website. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Are you seeing that report?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for confirming. So this is a copy of the package that's included in your agenda. And this is a new feature here that I wanted to walk through. While you've seen this report before, this is new. This is a link to a communication form. So in this package here, you would click on this link and it would take you to this. It's the District 1 External Partners Project Communication Request form. So this is a new tool that is available to you as a Board of Director or RTPA, and then it's also available to the MCOG TAC members. And you would complete this form if you would be interested in becoming more involved with the Caltrans project or projects listed in the milestone package. So if there's people on this call that are not a TAC or board member or staff with the RTPA, there are other resources available to you like the engagement portal, but for today's purposes, we're talking about this. So you would enter information about the project, and it's asking you here for the project number and project nickname. So you would come back to that report that I had and get that information here. So this is, the EA project number and project description. And then it asks you how much your agency wants to be involved. So you would drop down here and it would give you a variety of options ranging from, simple receiving project information to providing input, being a little more heavily involved, also engaging more heavily with the project development team. And then at the other end of the spectrum, be heavily involved in project and decision-making process. It also, asks you whether or not you'd like to have a presentation about this project. And, if you would, then we would work with Nafili and the rest of the people at MCOG to determine whether or not that would be appropriate. And then we just ask, what about this project is important to you? We ask if there are stakeholders that you recommend that we engage with on this project. Sometimes you're working on a project, for example, in the county that may overlap, and you might be working with people that we aren't necessarily aware about. So that would be a good place to communicate that to us, and just other comments. And then you would put in your name and contact information. And once the form's been submitted, we would, someone from Caltrans would be following up with you within 2 weeks. So this is something that we're piloting here at District 1. It's new, and we'll see if it works and adjust if needed, but we're welcome to your feedback. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Right. So where
is, let me again. On the milestone package that's included in your agenda, it's a link right there. It's also linked on the map page, and we share these milestone packages quarterly. So that would be available there, but you would also could reach out to us. We'd be able to send that to you however works best for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, moving on to MTA.
One quick update. We are going to be receiving and taking delivery of 6 new vehicles, 3 35-foot all-electric buses and 3 26-foot shuttle-style all-electric buses here in the next 2 weeks.
Very good. That's exciting. So, okay. Good news. Great Redwood Trail. Director Mulhern, do you want to report this time?
No, thank you. You can.
Okay.
I'll do it next time.
Well, yeah, we did have a report or a meeting last week, and we went over the draft master plan, and it will be coming back in March. We're going to have a special meeting in February about an appendix dealing with environmental review. Okay, and MCOG staff.
All right, you have the summary of meetings list in the packet. I don't have anything to add, but I am happy to answer questions. And if there are no questions, I can move along to our other MCOG staff administrative reports.
Yeah.
All right, Michael's got a report on the voter opinion polling.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So as you guys know, MCOG entered into contract this last June with consulting firm FM3 to conduct a voter opinion polling effort for the unincorporated areas of Mendocino County for a transportation sales tax measure, where the findings showed there was about 67% that were either yes or leaning towards yes for the measure. At an earlier meeting, FM3 presented a survey or a presentation of the findings of the survey, where they surveyed over 600 different people, and they are going to present at the March 10th County Board of Supervisors meeting, where also in the summer we will be potentially looking to do tracking surveys to see how many people are still for the voter opinion polling or the sales tax measure. And that's all I have for you guys today.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, March 10th, at that Board of Supervisors meeting, there'll be a discussion about what to do with the survey, any actions needed. All right, and then miscellaneous.
No miscellaneous reports from admin. Our next meeting date, we expect to be March 2nd, at which time we hope to have those items that we discussed previously.
Okay, so MCOG planning staff, work element 5.
All right, and I believe we've got Hector online to give that report.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, board. I apologize for not being there in person. I have fallen victim to the flu Nafili mentioned earlier, but I'm here to report on work element number 5, Mendocino County Sea Level Rise Roadway Impact Study. Per my last update, the consultant team was waiting until after the holidays to begin the community engagement plan. I'm happy to report that the consultant team has initiated the community engagement plan and distributed a project-specific survey to local agencies, TAC members, identified stakeholders, and interested members of the communities. The survey has also been posted on the project website, the City of Fort Bragg website, Active NorCal, and Red-Headed Black Belt blog. The survey has generated a substantial volume of feedback and public comments, providing early insight into community priorities, concerns, and location-specific issues. Community workshops will follow the survey phase to gather additional input and provide participation opportunities for residents, businesses, tribal representatives, and community-based organizations across the project area. The consultant team is aiming to conclude outreach activities and compile engagement results by the end of the first quarter of the current calendar year. These results, along with other factors including climate vulnerability, engineering feasibility, and community impact, will be used to determine the 5 priority sites that will be subject to further study. That's all I have for you today. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none from the board, but hope you feel better. I think we've all been through it.
One comment online.
Are we taking public comment on this? or-
Typically with reports, we wait until the end and then take comment on the entire item 14.
Okay. So Mr. McNamee will wait until the end. Okay. Then we'll take your comment. Okay, so moving on to number 2, Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant application submitted to Caltrans.
Good afternoon. Last fall, MCOG submitted an application for a corridor study up in the Willits area from just west of Blosser on 20 down to just south of Walker Road, right before the south on-ramp for the bypass. To look at certain intersections, to see how to solve some of those issues there, whether a roundabout would be the right option. It's also going to look at a road diet for section going from the Flower Street, that opposite of 20, south to Brown's Corner. Yeah, opposite Main Street. So from there south to Brown's Corner, see if a road diet is a feasible option, and we hope to hear whether it will be awarded in June.
May, earlier
Oh.
than usual, they're saying this time around,
Sweet.
so,
May.
yeah.
I'm glad I was corrected. Thank you. Any questions?
Seeing none? Okay, we'll go on to any miscellaneous. Okay, we'll go on to the Northern Rural Energy Network staff. Ryan.
Good afternoon, board members. So I just can give you a couple of highlights from my written report here. Wanted to let you know that we went through an evaluation process on our rebate offerings over the last couple of months, and we updated the rebates that are available through our program. And so those new rebate amounts have been posted on the NREN website and are available for folks to apply for those rebates. That website again is northernren.org. And let's see, we recently launched in collaboration with Lake some radio advertising, and we are upping our social media advertising as well, and we will be doing some targeted mailers in the next month or two. So a big focus on getting the word out there so that folks know about these programs and can apply for the rebates and our home assessments and get our free energy kits. Also, we're getting rolling with our workforce and education training programs. We will have a contractor training on heat pumps and heat pump water heaters coming up in March in collaboration with Pace Supply, and a couple of other workforce education training programs in the works. And a lot going on behind the scenes with budget planning for the next cycle, 28 through 31. So our whole team and our regional team has been working a lot on that. And we are also still hiring for a specialist position. So if you know anybody that might want to work with us, direct them our way. That pretty much covers it. Any questions?
Well, thank you for the workforce development, because that part is key to, you know, making these programs work. And I know that was one of the key programs that we were looking at originally. So it
Yeah.
sounds like it's great that it's getting launched.
And we're happy to be jumping in and working with some of the existing successful programs, the program at Mendocino College, and there's another program at the high school that we'll be collaborating with this spring as well. So not recreating things from scratch, but also looking at how we can work with existing programs to make them more effective and specialize in energy efficiency in particular.
Very good. All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see, we'll go to MCOG director's reports. Any reports? I'll just say that I was at the Laytonville Area Municipal Advisory Committee meeting last week, and it got brought up that there is a dangerous section of the Branscombe Road going west from Laytonville past the bridge, the pedestrian bridge that we put in. And so they say that for like that stretch of a half mile or a mile, it's very dangerous, it's dark, wooded, there's a pedestrian pathway right next to the road, but people cross the road too, and so they're asking for lights to be put in. I told them to write it up, send an official letter from the MAC to the MCOG consider it, even though it's a difficult issue to solve. But it was one of those needs that is out there, right, for our county that has lots of dark roads, pathways that, at least they have a pathway there. And then CalCog.
Yes.
report.
So I attended the January 30th CalCog board meeting. It was very dense. We talked about a lot of things. We started with the work plan priorities, or the work program priorities. And so they've been exploring becoming a, or having a component of a 501(c), which would open up a lot of different funding opportunities and revenue streams. And so they've done the financial exploration for that and feel that it's feasible. So they got some feedback and they're gonna work on that and get back to us. There's a regional leadership forum coming up March 9th to 11th that I'm going to be attending. So they talked about that. There's a whole bunch of legislation things that they're working on, specifically SB 375 reform, and supporting efforts to modernize the SB 375 to reflect today's housing, transportation, and climate realities, and trying to improve the flexibility and alignment with local and regional priorities instead of just the state. There's, let's see, other legislation that they're filing or following, the AB 1421, which is a road usage charge study to see if charging mileage-based fees would help fund California's transportation infrastructure. Let's see, that they're saying that the state's budget deficit is not as bad as previously proposed, to that the state was initially facing an $18 billion deficit, and now it's down to $2.9 billion. Still seems like a lot. They're also advocating for changes to the RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, and looking into options to find funding to support that, because it's an unfunded mandate, and so it's really important, especially for small communities like Mendocino County and other places around California. There's no way to balance that. So that one's really important, and they're on top of that. Let's see. They're also working on the federal reauthorization update, because our current one expires September 30th of this year. And they're working on new agreements, and there's an open comment period open until February 27th if anybody wanted to participate in that feedback. I think I hit a lot of the major points, but they're on top of a lot of other bills and things too, but those were the primary ones.
Yeah, thank you for attending that meeting and that report. Okay, we'll go to public comment. Peter McNamee.
Thank you again. I did want to comment on the sea level rise road assessment. The Grassroots Institute's Mendocino County Vision Work Group has been holding meetings for about 3 years now, working on issues associated with planning and future development of the coastal zone in Mendocino County. And we have heard from many members of the community about the concerns they have about the impact of sea level rise on the coastal zone roads and highways. The last King Tides event in January resulted in extensive flooding of county roads and highways in the county, requiring that Highway 1, for example, was closed in both directions for a considerable period of time cutting off residents in many cases from the most effective way to move up and down the coast, and also public health safety, public safety officials being able to respond to police calls and such. So it is a major concern, and I would be happy to serve on an advisory board having to do with that study. I put my contact information in the chat. We also have extended a invitation to MCOG and to the people involved in preparing the study to make a presentation to our work group, which meets every other month. The next meeting will be in March on the third Thursday, which is the 19th, between 3 and 5 by Zoom. And I know that there would be considerable public interest in increasing public engagement in the solutions to the problems that sea level rise and climate change in particular have on the coastal zone roads and transportation. So I wanted to make sure I made that comment today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So without any more comments, seeing none from staff, board. Okay, at 3:11, we will adjourn the meeting.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped.